Hey everybody, Wayne here. In today's tutorial playthrough, I will do a quick tutorial and a first turn playthrough of Absolute War, the Russian Front 1941 to 45, designed by Carl Paradis, published by GMT. I don't think I need to go into a whole lot of detail on what the game covers, right? Eastern Front of World War II. This is a area movement style game, alleged to be a little bit simpler than maybe his No Retreat series. Carl Paradis, probably best known for that series of games. What we're going to do is I'm going to quick kind of, explain the counters, explain the map, run through the sequence of play very quickly, kind of as an overview, and then the actual playthrough. Due to the way the game works, the main tutorial will actually come through that first turn playthrough. So I will have the game set up for the beginning of the war, Operation Barbarossa, or beginning of this part of the war, I guess I should say, the Eastern Front. I think that covers the basics, so let's get to the overview. All right, you can see the map, you can see different holding boxes. I have it set up for Operation Barbarossa, the scenario right now. Take a look at the map. You can see it's divided by areas, right? There's also hexes and there's also boxes. So basically the holding boxes, seeing places like Yugoslavia, Germany, Berlin, Czechoslovakia, the Urals, Siberia, those are, abstracted, right? They don't fit on this map itself. They do come into play when we get into supply, because if you look here on there, you can see basically like a little black factory icon. That's going to influence supply. It's called a plant. What's actually on the map for the area that you're going to be mainly moving around in? And you can move into these boxes. As you can see, part of the game, you'll start off in Hungary. You'll have some Hungarian infantry here. On the map, like I said, it's mainly areas. There's also hexes. These hexes are major cities. So adjacent to different areas, you may have, say Kiev, Minsk, Kharkov, Moscow. These major cities are going to have their own kind of special effects with regard to combat, support, moving into them, etc. With the main areas here, you're going to be moving into, for the most part, you'll be moving into open areas. Areas that have enemy forces, generally you won't be moving into them. Instead, you'll be engaging in combat, which will then, hopefully for you, right, hopefully the attacker anyway, will allow you to advance into that. The enemy units may remain in that area, in which case it becomes contested. They may be forced to retreat, or they may be eliminated or captured. There's a bunch of different kind of mechanics. We'll cover all that as we get into combat. Talking about the units that are moving, and then we'll look at the cards. So talking about the units. So you're looking at the units themselves are these big counters. And what will happen is they'll form stacks. A stack can be one unit. It could be multiple stacked together. Obviously, this is German, this is Russian, so we'll be stacking them together. But say you had, a Panzer and then infantry 9th Army. You can stack them together, put them together, that forms a stack, as well as a single unit is a stack. Now, on the units here, and there's a few different kind of special units. So let me grab one quick. And I'll have some pop-ups on the screen, of course, for you guys, as I like to do. So you guys can, it'll help you learn a little bit easier, right? A little more visual besides what I'm just saying. So looking here, seeing a couple different things. One, with the 2nd Panzer, the German unit, because it has the tank icon on there, you can tell this is going to be, it's going to be a mobile unit. It's going to have special armor abilities. It's going to possibly have mobile exploitation. Maybe it can do pincer maneuver and create pockets, which will get you extra points, basically the equivalent of victory points for the game. Technically, they're called war status points. On the counters as well, you have a couple little dots just to indicate extra steps. Pretty standard in a lot of games. And now you have the little explosion icons on the bottom. Now, those are very important. So each of those is a strength point, right, is a combat point. However, as you can see, the different colors, not all combat points are created equal. You have the gold ones here on the 2nd Panzer and the Western Force. Those mean that these units, or stacks, can attack, can defend, and they can provide support. You can see the silver icon, that is only attack or defense. And you can see the fortified one here, this Russian unit, fortified 1, has a white. That means defense. There's also a like a red explosion. That means they can only attack. So when you're doing combat, and we'll get into that during our playthrough, you're going to have, adding up, adding and subtracting these strength points. However, like I said, depending on what action you're taking, are you attacking, defending, are you providing support, etc., some of those icons, some of these strength points may or may not actually help you, or may or not be able to be used. Again, we'll get in more into that as we do combat. Also, when you look on the counters, you'll see special letters. The left one is generally going to be sort of part of a group, and there may be special rules. For instance, in the beginning of Operation Barbarossa, you can only attack and support with the same letter. So say the letter C. Units of the Germans that say have the letter N can't support each other during that initial attack. You also then have different icons, say in the bottom right here. For instance, this fortified unit has a 2 and has an R. The R with the circle means that, hey, if it is forced to retreat, it can't retreat. It's just eliminated. The 2 in the circle means it's a reinforcement, in 2 game turns from now, etc. There's different icons as well. They're all explained in the book and then on the various player aids. Cards. So look at the cards quick, and then I think we'll go ahead and just begin the playthrough that we can kind of explain as I go. So you guys can kind of see on the map here, and the cards are right off here, and I'll just show them quick, but... And one more thing, just before we get into the cards, I wanted to make sure to cover with the map. We looked at the different areas and everything. There's a lot of different tracks over here. It seems complicated at first. It's not. You have a track here, optional. It's called the combat points track. That just allows you, as you're doing combats, you can just keep track of it if you want, if it's easier. If not, you don't have to use it. You will use the war status points. Again, that's basically the equivalent of victory points, along with a resource marker. They use the same track here to keep track of how many resources you have available. You're going to have boxes for, say, the German air units, the Luftwaffe, German strategic reserve, Russian strategic reserve. What those are will be forces that you can remove from the map, put here, and then at the end of your turn, place back on the map where you want them. With limitations, of course. So it's kind of a way to abstractly show that, forces aren't always just moving, hex to hex, or in this case, area to area, etc. There may be some different things at play with their movement. You're going to have for captured, destroyed, and shattered. And then obviously you have your nice big turn track here. Bunch of information on there. It's going to tell you the special event for that turn. There's also a track depending on the weather. It'll tell you how many attack commands you can give, how much air support you can use. We'll get into that as we play. So, cards. What you have with the cards, you have 2 types of cards. Basically, you have the event cards and the offensive cards. Event cards, just the black border here. Offensive cards, the red border. You'll have a lot less of the offensive cards. You'll have like a full deck of the event cards. Each turn, you're going to be drawing 1 of the offensive cards and then 4 of the event cards. When you're looking at these cards here, there's a bunch of iconography, a bunch of things that are important. Depending on what's going on, what stage of the game you're in, they may matter. The first thing you look at is the year on the left. That's going to tell you if you can play that card, period. If it's the year it is, you can play it. So, for instance, in Operation Barbarossa, obviously it's 1941. Heinkels and Stukas, yep, we're going to be able to play that card. When you start looking at the different information on here, sometimes it comes into play, sometimes it doesn't. Say, okay, we're able to play that card. Now, down here, it's going to tell us, oh, when can we play it? Play in any support step. So that's when we get into combat. Add 1. And you can see it's a strength point, right, to a Luftwaffe. And you remove an unsupplied marker from any one German stack. Okay, so it's got two different abilities you can both do. You can see it also when you're looking at it, and different cards will have different combat strength points up here that just adds those strength points. Obviously, it says we get to do 1. It adds 1s to our Luftwaffe. In addition, when you're looking at the bottom here, when you get into combat, there's 2 ways to resolve combat. When you're doing a battle, it's just going to be you check you're going to be checking the result here, depending on the differential with the combat strength. Again, we'll get into it as we play it. But basically, obviously, the higher for the attacker is better, lower, better for the defender. If you have a assault combat, you're actually just going to check a assault result table. Again, when we get to combat, I'll go ahead and have that pop up on the screen for you guys, so you guys can know exactly what I'm talking about. I think that covers melee on here. Oh, and then let's say we look at the offensive card here. This tells you how many major offensive you're going to get if you play that card, you know, when you play it. Again, special events, you have a little history, a little bit of text there, right? Tell us something. And major offensive. And here it'll say your goal. So, for instance, your goal here, USSR, means you need to capture an area in the USSR. A secondary goal would be to capture Romanian oil if you get to that point, or if you have Romanian oil in your possession. So that's it for the cards. That's it for the units. We looked at the map. One last thing I wanted to cover before we get into the playthrough, because they're a big part of it, are the combat markers. So when you're doing your different actions, you know, movement, yes, anyone can move basically. However, when it comes to the attacking, supporting attacks, which either on the offensive or the defensive, or using the special abilities of tanks, mobile, tank, etc., or armor, I should say, for the term, you have these markers. These combat markers, you're given a certain amount. Depending on the scenario, depending on the turn, you may or may not have the full number of 18. You may only have 16. You may have even less. These markers, you're going to be using them, assigning them, right? So when you have an attack, you're assigning an attack marker to your, say, lead stack. Then you may have support stacks, stack or stacks. You're then using support for them. Same thing, like I said, you're using special effects for the armor, the special abilities, or just mobile, etc. When you use them, you're just putting them on the board, you're assigning them. Eventually, when all your thing is completed, you're going to flip them over to the done side. They are now no longer available, right? So you can, there's only a limited amount of attacks you can do, a limited amount of support, and then you don't get them back to the beginning of your next turn. So you may use them. If you use all of them up, then when your opponent goes, you're no longer going to have any, so you're not going to be able to, you know, provide, say, support. The attack maybe won't matter as much, but you won't be able to provide support when you attack from defensive stacks supporting each other. Just wanted to make sure to cover those before we dove into the playthrough. But now that it is covered, I believe that's everything. So let's go ahead and get going. Hey guys, Future Wayne here. I just want to make a quick note. I make several combat mistakes in this tutorial, which I do regret because when I'm doing a tutorial video, I hate to have mistakes in there. However, most tutorials, at least I'll just say the most I do, there's usually a mistake or two. Fortunately, I do, I recognize them and I correct them in the video itself. So you will see pop-up boxes with text that says, hey, this combat strength, it should be this combat strength, it should be this combat result. I thought about refilming them, but I decided to leave them in there first to show that, well, I make mistakes, but second, as a learning tool, right, for you guys to say, hey, make sure you pay attention to those things. If it's something that I missed while I was filming tutorial, it may be something that you miss when you're playing. So just be aware of that. And again, there will be pop-ups, should recognize most of those mistakes. And again, most of them are during the combat phases. Several of the combats have some mistakes in them. So I just want to let you guys know that. Now back to the video. All right, let's begin the tutorial playthrough. So first turn, you skip advanced turn marker normally. Skip that, of course. It is June 1941. And again, we're doing the Operation Barbarossa scenario. Game turn event. So every turn, there would be a certain event. In this turn, it is going to be a surprise attack, which the Germans are launching. And what that does is there's going to be some special rules. I'm not going to go through all of them because they're just explained in the actual playbook for the scenario. But it's things like certain units can only support certain other units. I think I mentioned this during the tutorial part or the overview part, whatever you want to call it. So for instance, you see the ends here, they have to match for them to be supporting each other. Units can only move one area their first turn, so you can't have them moving all over the place. They can't move their full movement, just to show that it's kind of a, you know, a limited action and you're following more of a set piece for that very first turn. After that, it opens up and you can do more. Okay, so the war status, no need to check that. Germans have the war initiative. War initiative means that they are able to flip their or the card, excuse me, the card that they draw for the offensive, they're going to go ahead and discard it if they want, draw another one. Except for, during the first turn here, the Germans automatically start with, of course, the Operation Barbarossa card. It's going to give us 2 of the major offensives. Play immediately, of course, and it has our goals: take an area in the USSR, and then take Gorky if we could, which it's over there, so that's not going to happen right away. Okay, so go ahead. Let's set that right there. I like to have it there so I can just see it in action here. So, and what we'll do, because we know we do get 2 offensives, these major offensive chits, let's go ahead and just put them on there for now. Okay. Like I said, we did the event, check for everything else. Okay, now on to the German player turn. It's always a German player turn, then the Soviet player turn. German player turn, first phase, supply phase. Supply phase, very easy to do, not a problem at all. Basically, what you're mainly looking for are going to be any units or stacks that are surrounded, right? Where that supply is completely cut off. Otherwise, for the most part, units are going to be in supply. How do you trace supply? Very easy. You check your plants here. For instance, Germany, Berlin, I mentioned that. The little black symbol that looks like a little factory. Czechoslovakia here. The Russians have over in the Urals, Siberia, which is brown bordered. So all the way over there. Germans right here. You're checking from those boxes to any city. So whether we're talking Breslau, Poznan, Warsaw, those are major cities, or the cities that are the minor cities that are here. You can see the different areas. Lvov here for the Soviets, or Lomza here for the Germans. You're checking those cities. Those cities, if they can trace a path of supply to here, okay. And then from your units, you look to those cities, you have, so they have an unlimited range. You have up to 2 zones to a main city supply. So overall, it's generally not going to be hard to be in supply, assuming you have any sort of line, because the supply is going to be kind of advancing behind you. Pretty simple. So starting off, of course, every German unit's in supply. When it comes to the, you then also check during your turn, so the phasing player it's called. You also, at the end of it, so we went through and, yep, they're all in supply. You would check to see for the Soviets, are they all in supply? Again, they are also all in supply. It's the very first turn. Not a big deal. But hopefully the supplies, I explained it well enough. All right, on to the next phase, the combat marker phase. This is where you're given the combat markers you're going to use. Remember, those are the attack, support, mobile or armor markers. The Germans, they start off with all of theirs for the first turn. You're not necessarily going to be able to use all of them. They're not all going to come into play. We do have access to all of them. The Soviets have none the first turn. They are caught kind of flat-footed, right? So they have nothing to defend with. And they also have actually 2 of their, the attack combat markers are actually on the turn supply. You can see them right here. Turn track. They'll come into play later in the game as you play, just to show that as the Soviet kind of war machine builds up. And they could be affected by if your oil well zone is enemy controlled, which, so for instance, Soviet oil, you can see down here, or for the Germans, you have the Soviet oil here, Romanian oil, Bucharest, same deal. If that gets controlled by the enemy, then yeah, you're in trouble there. So, okay, that's it for the combat marker phase. Now you go to the card phase. In the card phase, you're going to draw 4 events and 1 offensive card. You're going to play any red titled events immediately. Remember, if we have the war initiative, you can redraw 1 offensive card unless it says play immediately. You're then going to discard any cards you don't want to gain resource points, which will happen because you're going to have cards that have I'll say the wrong year, but they're going to have a year on there that you can't use them. So you're probably going to want to just discard them for the resource points. And then if you have a total of more than 6 cards, you want to discard down to 6. That won't happen the first couple turns. That happens later on. So for the Germans, let's go ahead and draw. We can go ahead and draw offensive card here. Last ditch offensive. So as you can see, the years here, not going to help us a whole lot, but we'll just set that aside for now. And then we're going to get to draw 4 of these cards. And what you're checking for, you're supposed to draw 1 at a time. The event cards, by the way. So just to be clear, you have the offensive cards, you have the red border, and the event cards just have a black border here. Let's go ahead and draw 1 at a time. Heinkels and Stukas. No play immediately, anything like that. Heinz Guderian, doesn't say play immediately. Counterattack. And finally, Veteran Lancers. Okay. All right. So what we can do, like I said, we kind of look at our cards. And you're looking at them, what do you want to do with them, right? Do you want to keep them? Can you keep them? What makes sense for you? So looking at our cards here, we definitely want to discard some of them so that we can get resource points, because we're going to want resource points to activate our offensives and then possibly have some extras just to hang on to. So we definitely want to go ahead and let's get rid of the last-ditch offensive. So let's go ahead and remove our resource points up from 2 to 3. And let's do... well, kind of like... okay. Let's discard Veteran Lancers here. So that gives us another resource point, so we go up to 4, and we'll hang on to these 3 cards right here. And I'll set them right here just so you guys can kind of see them. Well, sort of see them. When we get down to some of the combats, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in for you guys so you guys can see it a little better. All right, so that is the card phase. Now, next, we go to the strategic phase. So the strategic phase, as you get into the game later, there's going to be a lot of things to it. The beginning here, there's not a lot to it, but I'll kind of explain it so you guys have a general idea of what it is, right? So the first part is returning units. So any withdrawn, you remove withdrawn units. Units that will have on the back of the counter will have a turn on there. You got to get rid of them, right? You can remove forts that are destroyed. The air units that are on the map. So say my Luftwaffe, right? When it comes to my next turn, right now they're not assigned yet. Comes to my next turn, they would go ahead and be removed and put back in the German air units box. Upgrading units. Eventually, and you can't do it the first turn. It's one of the also the rules for the surprise attack. Operation Barbarossa is that you cannot do upgrades the first turn. So, but eventually, Soviets can upgrade their troops. You can flip air units that have been damaged. You use a command marker to flip them. Forts, when you're building a fort, you can use a command marker to flip them over to their more advantageous side instead of their building side. Then you look at reinforcements. So you can spend a command marker to move unit into the Soviet Strategic Reserve. So you can actually remove them from the map here and put them in the reserve, which may be something where you look at like, hey, this reserve army from outside Moscow, it's pretty far away from the front lines. Maybe the Soviets will spend a command marker on their turn, right? Right now it's the German turn. On their turn, remove it, put it in the Soviet Strategic Reserve, and then later on, at the end of a turn, they get to go ahead and put it basically wherever they want, again, within reason, certain restrictions, right? But that allows them maybe to say, take a unit from the back, move it up front, maybe plug a hole, etc. In fact, I can pretty much guarantee that will come into play later. You have, depending where you put them, like I said, air units, forts get put in friendly zones, etc. You can see that you can see some over here on the turn track. For instance, later this turn, the Soviets will get a maritime unit here, and they'll get a fort that they're going to go ahead and get to put on the map. So, on to, replace eliminated units. Okay, so if you have units that are shattered, destroyed, captured, depending on what their situation is, shattered, you get to move them into the reserve for free. If they're destroyed, you can spend a resource point. Remember, you have a certain amount, depending on your cards and everything. You get a certain amount per turn. You can go ahead and move them from destroyed to the reserve. If you have captured units, you can spend resource points to get them back. You can also spend command markers. Remember, again, command markers are these guys here. You can spend the command markers to deploy disrupted, shattered, destroyed units directly to the map. So instead of sort of putting them into the reserve, boom, right to the map. But it does take that command marker. If the reserve happens to be full and you want to put units in your reserve, which the German one's right here, you go ahead and actually put them on the reinforcement track for the next turn. So they're still available. It's just going to take a little bit longer to get them out. Then you create your reserve. So I mentioned that earlier. You can spend command markers and you can move units. You can't do unsupplied or static units. and there's only the max of 4. But otherwise, if you have leg units, mobile units, whatever, you can go ahead and spend a command marker, and you can put them in that reserve, so you'll be able to deploy them later. Finally, we declare our major offensives. So you play our offensive cards with a max of 4 total value. We discarded our 1 card. All we have is Operation Barbarossa, which is effectively played, play immediately, etc. And it has the 2. So we talked about major offensives. When you have your offensive cards, you're going to see this number up here in the little hex, in the yellow hex. That is the number of major offensives that you have to do. If you don't, you're going to lose, war status points. We have 2 of them. We're definitely going to use 2 of them. So you declare them. So you're playing this card, which it's played automatically. It's the first turn. We get offensive markers equal to the value. So for us, it's 2. Now what we're going to do is during the combat phase, we will go ahead and place them. I'm not going to place them yet, but we're going to go ahead and just set them above the card just to kind of show that they are there. So really, they wouldn't necessarily be put on the card right away. I just did that because, well, that's how I like to do it when I play. All right, that's it for the strategic phase. Now on to the movement phase. And the part that's going to take the longest, by the way, is the combat phase. We're running through it pretty quick, but there's not a whole lot to do in those other phases this first turn. Movement phase. So legs and mobile stacks, so basically the infantry right in the armor, they have, depending if it's leg, they have 2 movement points, which for the most part means they can move 2 areas. And then if it is a mobile stack, it can move 3. It has 3 movement points. However, if you do the full movement, you become disrupted unless you spend a command marker. It's kind of a unique part of the game where, hey, you can move a little bit. You can move your full movement, but if you do, you're going to be disrupted, right? To show that maybe you're forcing everyone, full speed. We gotta move, unless you take the time and resource to use a command marker, in which case, okay, you can be prepared. Now remember though, in the first turn here in Operation Barbarossa, with the surprise attack, the German units only get to move 1 area anyway. They don't get to move their full movement. So, and when it comes to stacks, you can kind of combine units at the end of a move. You can't drop them off. And one big thing, just so you guys are aware, you cannot move from a contested zone to an enemy. Excuse me, you cannot move from your regular zone to an enemy zone directly. So, for instance, we're not moving, say, attacking here, right? Or when we get to that point, we're not moving in during the movement phase. We are attacking into there. If it's contested, it's different. But as of right now, they control it. They are alone. The Soviets are. We're alone in ours. We can't just move directly in. We'll only get to advance into those areas as a result of combat. There is a stacking. So an area can have 2 stacks of 2 units. Basically, any player. A hex can only have 1 stack of 2 units from 1 player. The hexes, Kiev, Minsk, etc. The boxes, they are bigger. They are, let's see, what are they? 4 stacks of 2 units per player. So a little bit different there. Yeah. So just remember stacking. So basically most of the areas, right? So most of the areas here with the dotted lines are going to be 2 stacks of 2 units with any player. So, all right. Let's see, for movement here. So let's go ahead and do our movement now. We don't have a whole lot of areas we can move into. Let's go ahead and we will combine this 4th Panzer and 16th Army here into a stack. And we'll move the 18th Army out of Königsberg and move them into Lützen here. Let's go ahead and combine these stacks. Let's see, should we move there? Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to move both the 2nd Panzer and the 4th Army. We're going to move them into Brest here, which there was a Soviet control marker. This just denotes its control if you don't have units, if you're not sure. They're kind of optional. Go ahead and remove that. Obviously, we moved into it. We now control that area. We'll form a stack here. And I think that'll be it, because my plan here, as the Germans, as we get to the next step, the next phase is going to be the combat phase. I'm going to want to attack. Okay, let's do it up here. Should we do up here? Yeah, let's do that as well. So let's go ahead and combine these. So we're going to attack here. We're going to launch an attack here. We're going to launch a 2-pronged attack here and a 2-pronged attack here. Yeah, that's definitely what we're going to do. So for movement, and again, it was only 1 zone anyway, so it's not like, here, technically you could have kept moving. in another turn, but because of the rules of the first turn, Operation Barbarossa and surprise attack, you only get to move the one area that first turn. So I think that's it for the movement phase. Let's go ahead and go on to the combat phase. This is going to be a little bit more in depth. Looking at the map right now, you guys can see, like I said, and I kind of pointed out already, kind of where I plan to do some attacks. And what we're going to do, let's go ahead. I'm going to place my major offensives too, so you guys know. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our 2 major offensives we have to use. Let's go ahead and put one in Bialystok here, where the Western army here of the Soviets is, and then Lvov. Yes, Lvov, where the southwest is. Because like I said, we're going to attack in there. I'm attacking there. We're also going to be attacking up here and over there. So you guys can see the different kind of combats that I had planned out. Let's go ahead and zoom in. And what we're going to do is we'll start up here. We'll work our way from the north and kind of work our way south, resolving combats. But I'm going to go ahead and kind of zoom the camera in so you guys get a closer eye and a closer view as we do our combats and I explain them. So let's get to that. All right. We are looking up here where the Finns, you have Helsinki right here. Whoop, as I'm throwing the Finnish soldiers all over the place. My apologies, gentlemen. You can see them up here, and we're going to be attacking the Soviets here. We have Karelian defending in the Modi lands here, Vyborg right here. So, all right, so what we do during the combat phase, we choose our target stack and then our lead attacker. Target stack in that hex, or excuse me, in the area, not hex. This is a hex. Leningrad is a hex here. In this area is the Karelian. Definitely is going to be a target stack. And then our lead attacker is going to be our stack of Finnish troops that we created during the beginning of the movement phase. Now we'll go ahead and jump into resolving combat. The first step is called the support step. So each player, beginning with the non-initiative player first, announces a commitment of supporting troops, 1 combat card, and then a possible pincer marker. So let's run through them. Supports, that's when I talked about using support markers, right? Support. What is support? Support is when you can have stacks or soldiers to provide their combat power, right? Their strength to support you. Now, if they're in the same area, they can support, or if they're in an adjacent hex, they can support. If they're in an adjacent area, they cannot. It's considered too far away, right? Like they're too far away to help. The area itself covers too big of an area for them to be able to provide the support. However, the unit also has to have the type of strength points to do that, right? The combat points. It's something I talked about earlier, right? The different colors here. For instance, when we're looking, we see white little explosions, right? The white means they're only good on defense. To provide support, they would have to be gold. So for instance, here, the Finnish troops, they each do have a gold one. Now, they're not worried about support right now. They're one single stack, so they'll all be attacking. What that means is, if Leningrad, if this force here was gold, it would be able to provide support. However, unfortunately, they're all white, so they cannot. So the Karelian front here, they're kind of on their own for this attack. So, and in addition, now you look at combat cards. Soviets have no combat cards to start with on the first turn. And they're not attacking, some pincers, not an issue. Now let's go over to the Germans. Supports, again, no support for this attack. You will see that later. We just have the 1 stack attacking. We also are not going to use any of our combat cards. We're going to save them for our bigger attacks where we have major offensive markers. We want to make sure to win those and win those good. In addition, pincer marker wouldn't apply. We're not going to be able to do any sort of pincer attack. I'll explain that when we get to it because I will be doing those later. So, support step covered. Now let's go to the strength step. You're totaling your combat points, your strength points. That will matter for the attack. In this case, for the Finns, 1, 2, 3, 4. You have the gold, you have the silver. Both are good for attacking. Karelian is just going to be 1, unfortunately. So, 4 versus 1. Now, what you do then is you go to the combat resolution step. There's 2 ways to resolve combats depending on the terrain. It's either going to be a battle or an assault. A battle is when it's in an open, clear area. However, as you can see, this is not open, clear terrain up here, right? This is kind of a, marsh, rough terrain is considered in the game, right? So it's actually going to be an assault combat. Those battle and assault are 2 different ways to resolve it. During a battle, you're going to go ahead and subtract the defender's points from the attackers. So 4 minus 1 is 3. The attacker draws a card. You look at that bottom row, right? That combat, the battle result on the bottom. During an assault, each side draws 1 card and adds extra hits. Then you subtract the defender's hits from the attackers, and then you apply the results on the assault result table, which I will have pop up when the time comes. So let's do it. Let's resolve this. So right now it's 4 versus 1. Go ahead and draw an event card for the Soviets. What do they got? Ooh, 2. So go ahead and look at 2 stars here. That's going to go ahead and add 2. So now they're at 3. Now let's go ahead and draw for the Germans. 1. So they only adds 1. So the 4 becomes a 5. Their 1 becomes a 3. So 5 versus 3, or 5 minus 3 is a 2. Look at the assault results table. Basically, it is a plus, right? It is still 2 left over. So it's A plus 2. And any higher, any lower, you'll just go to the lowest there. But A plus 2 is assault successful. Target retreats 1 zone, or both sides lose 1 step, and the attacker gets to advance. In addition, you can see a little symbol there. That means that the defender becomes disrupted. So we'll grab a disrupted marker, place it on the Karelian. He's going to go ahead and retreat up here. Petrovadovsk, yes, he'll retreat over there. And we're going to go ahead and have the Finns moving up. In addition, just to make sure we have it right. So I did use an attack. They are attacking. And you can put that on there first just to show that that's attacking. Who's attacking, who's supporting. This was a simpler combat, so I didn't even put it on there. But we're using our attack combat marker. They advance after combat. And we'll go ahead and mark it, flip it over to done. And that is the first combat. Now let's go ahead and move down into more of Germany proper and where they're attacking directly into the Soviet Union. And we'll do some of those combats. All right, let's go ahead and resolve our second combat here. So kind of moving down south a little bit. And by the way, one thing, I did not do this during the movement, but that's just because I was explaining things and I forgot to. During the movement phase, you do assign your air units. So they're going to provide, you can see, 1 extra combat point. Sometimes that really matters though. So you're going to want to be assigning them during the movement phase. I forgot to, as I was explaining. I'm going to go back, or I'm going to do it now just because, well, it's a big part of the game, and I'm not going to not have the Luftwaffe attacking during the opening phase of Operation Barbarossa just because I forgot to put the chits out. So anyway, so yeah, this would be during the movement phase. You would do that, FYI, just so you know. So I'm assigning them to where I'm going to be attacking. Actually, do I want one there too? I think I do. So hang on. That's probably why, I guess, because I was going to use one now too as well. So, okay. All right. And, right. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. All right. So we are going to be doing our attack up here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of spread this out a little bit. We have the 16th Army, the 4th Panzer, and then our Luftwaffe supporting, along with the 18th Army. So, just like you would, you choose a target stack. So I'm choosing the Northwest Soviet stack. Lead attacker is going to be this stack right here. Let's go ahead and put an attack marker just to show. Now we go right into the combat sequence of play here. So support step, again, the Soviets, looking for support. They don't have anyone that can provide support, unfortunately. They also don't have any command markers anyway that could provide support. So they are kind of out of luck this first turn, right? They're just going to take a lot of hits without able to support. Normally, traditionally, as you get later in the game, you can support yourself a lot better, both attacking and defensively. So as for the Germans, yep, let's see, what do we want to do? Do we want to do, okay, so we will definitely play, so first off, declare support. We're going to use one of our support markers, and we're going to put it on the 18th Army. They're going to provide support during our attack as we're attacking Northwest here. As well as we're going to play the counterattack card. We're just going to play it for the combat support here to give an additional +1. And it's a little bit of glare there. I apologize, but don't worry. All you need to know is it adds a +1 there. Okay. I think that'll be it for support. Yeah, no pincer movement, anything like that. No, we're going to do that here and here. Right now, no. We're just doing kind of a straight attack. So, all right, let's go ahead and total our strength points. again, we're kind of looking at where are we. So we are attacking into an open area. So unlike the last combat, which was an assault, this will be a battle. That's hoping to be resolved. So strength points. We have for attacking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And support, it'll be 7, 8, and then 9 for the card. Total of 9. Can't see it, but I'm the combat point track. I'm going to put it on the 9 just so I don't forget. So we're at 9 attack. Depending with support, it's just one unit or a stack of 1. So we can use both of those points. If this support stack had another unit underneath it, it actually would not be able to... it would not be able to... The bottom unit in the stack would not provide support. Just to show that as support, you know, it's not 100%. You can only get some of the units can really only help. All right. For them, they have, well, they have 2. So, and there's no special bonuses for the area. It's an open area, so no combat modifiers to support the defender. So, 2. So, 9 minus 2 is a total of 7. And again, we're using on battle results. We're doing a battle. So what that is we go ahead and the attacker draws one of their event cards, black outline, flip it over, and check out down here. Now we're at, what did I say? We're at +7. You go to 6. 6 is the highest. D1. I'll show the battle results table on the screen there. Defender defeated. Area defenders retreat 2 zones. Then the target loses 1 step and the attacker advances. So they're going to retreat 2 zones. However, this is the only step he has. So he loses a step. So he is eliminated. So we'll go ahead and place him in the destroyed Soviet units box. In addition, so the attackers get to advance. Let's go ahead and discard this since we played it. So we'll go ahead and advance this stack into Conus here. Advance this stack as well. Flip the support stack over to done. And what we're going to do now, as we kind of advance after combat, so we have this mobile unit, this tank here. So what we can do, end up with extra one. Anyway, sorry, I was lost my train of thought for a second there. My apologies. We're going to go ahead and actually we can do what's called a mobile exploitation. So if they have an armor marker and the terrain allows it, which it does, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we have to use a mobile marker. So we're going to go ahead and put him on here. And we'll use it, we'll set it aside, and we'll show that he will advance into Riga here. So he will continue to advance 1 additional area. We could technically maybe advance him here. I don't really want to do that, though. So we're going to go ahead and advance him up here. So let's flip that tech marker done. And just to show that he was done as well, we have to go ahead and put a marker on him to show he's done, one of the command markers. So we moved our armor up. So basically kind of think of Blitzkrieg style, right? Otherwise, they're advanced into here. And with the advance, we'll go ahead and... no, we're not going to do any combining there. So, all right. Double checking here. Yep. Combat marker's done. We had it done to split off the stack here. Okay. Let's go on to the next combat, which will be right over here. All right. This will be a fun one here. So we are going to go ahead and choose our target stack, which is Western right here in Bialystok. Butchered that pronunciation. That's okay. I'm not Russian. And then we will go ahead and choose our lead attacker, which will be right here. Stack right here, which is the 9th Army, the 3rd Panzer, and then the Luftwaffe here. Let's go ahead and add an attack marker there. And as you can see, we do have that major offensive marker, so we're definitely going to be taking advantage of that. So let's see here. So we go ahead, we declared our attack here. Let's go into the support step. Again, the defenders there, the Soviets, this first turn, they can't really do much for defending or what they're going to do. However, we're definitely going to have some fun here. So for support, let's go ahead and grab a support marker. Let's assign it to the 2nd Panzer and the 4th Army here, because they'll be supporting our attack. And now here's where we get to have a lot of fun. So first off, combat card. Yes, we will assign a combat card, of course. What should we do? This one. Let's do the Heinkel's and Stuka's one. Well, play in any support step, add 1 to any Add 1 to any Luftwaffe. So sorry, it's not that. We're looking at the event down here, right? Add 1 to any Luftwaffe, and you remove an unsupplied marker from any 1 German attack. We don't have any unsupplied stacks, but we can add the 1 to the Luftwaffe here. So my apologies. That part is determined during you're doing a the assault. Excuse me. So yes. Yes, I'm sorry, for the assault. So we're looking at that part right there. My apologies. Okay, so that's adds 1 there. So, and then in addition, we will use a pincer marker. We're going to go ahead and set that in there. And for a pincer attack, we're trying to create a pocket. We're trying to create a pocket, which will be able to place a pocket marker. What is that? How do you do that? So the lead attacker has to be a mobile armor, which he is, 3rd Panzer. The defender cannot be a armor stack with mobile advance, which he's just infantry here. The attacking zone, we have to come from 2 or more zones, which we are. We're attacking from 2 separate zones. The defender zone has to be a major offensive, or it has to be a mobile advance, which we have the major offensive marker here. And then if we get to eliminate him, if he risks retreat, he'll be eliminated, and we'll form a pocket, which will then give us +1 war status. So kind of like earning victory points by, creating a pocket of troops, capturing them all. So, all right. In addition, let's go ahead and spend. We spend 1 resource point, so we're at 4. We drop down to 3 to flip our major offensive marker over to dun-dun-dun. Now it has a little explosion. Boom, we get to add that to our attack. So that's it for the support step. Let's do the, and hang on a second. Let's do, we'll do the, let me place the armor marker on there as well. Don't want to forget that on the old Panzer here. So, okay. Let's figure out our strength step. And again, because we're attacking an open area, this will be a battle. Assault members in kind of rougher terrain. This will be a battle. So we'll just subtract the defender's combat points from our attack points and then check one of our cards. So our attack points, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then for the support, 9, 10, 11, 12. Remember, you can't count the second unit there. It can only count the top one. So we're at 12. Did I count that extra 1 for the major offensive? Let me recount. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 actually. Whew, doggies. And they are at 2. So 13 minus 2 is 11. Obviously, remember, it only goes up to 6. So we'll go ahead and resolve. So draw a card. Check the 6. DB. Defender broken. Area defenders retreat 2 zones. Attacker advance. However, you can see the symbols, right? So they'd be disrupted. However, you can see the little arrow. Pincer maneuver successful. What that means, they are not retreating. They are destroyed. In addition, we have to place a pocket there. So Western is go ahead and place in the destroyed Soviet unit box. We go ahead and put a pocket there to show that we've captured, or I should say we've surrounded a pocket. I'm going to remove the pincer marker now. And then major offensive, because it was successful, we took the area. We go ahead and place it back on the Operation Barbarossa card. And we can discard that because we used them. And we will be advancing in there. So let's go ahead and advance. Ninth Army, Andrew, here we go. And we'll advance, let's see, support. Let's go ahead and advance support as well. Yeah, let's do that. And then what we'll do as well is I'm going to go ahead for mobile exploitation. The 3rd Panzer is going to move into Minsk here. So he does need another marker. Go ahead and mark him as done. Obviously the armor stays with him. The 9th Army, we'll go ahead and leave them there. And the end of combat, flip it over to done, flip it over to done. So we went ahead and basically took that area. We captured, or I should say we surrounded them, right? So we created a pocket, which the beginning of our next turn, if we have uncontested control of this area, this pocket will become a war status point for us. So we definitely want to try to hang on to it. And with the mobile exploitation, we went ahead and moved the 3rd Panzer, like I said, up here into Minsk. And we went ahead and captured a major city. So at the end of our turn here, we should get a war status point for that. Let's go ahead and move for the last combat. All right, the last combat, we're going to resolve this turn. Let's go ahead and declare. So we have our target stack is going to be the southwest right here. And then the lead attacker will be this stack right here. 6 Army, the 1st Panzer, and then the Luftwaffe 3. Separate them just so we can see. Oops, not done. Attack. There we go. And, okay, yeah. So let's jump into the combat sequence of play. Support step. Again, they have no support. We will do a support marker for the 17th Army. They're going to help us out here. Okay, not done. Not done. Combat card. We will... we'll hang on to our card here. We don't need it. And then we'll go ahead and let's do a pincer. Pincer, because we're attacking from 2 areas. Remember, we meet the requirements, right? Lead attacker's armor, attacking 2 or more zones, etc. So we'll put a pincer. We're trying to get a pocket here. In addition, we will spend 1 of our resource points. So we drop down to 2 now to turn this major offensive marker over, so we get that +1 to our attack. So we are attacking into clear or open terrain, so it'll just be a battle. Very simple. Let's go ahead and add up our attacker strength here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Our support, 8, 9. And then 10 for the major offensive, so we are at 10. They are at 1, 2, 3. So 10 minus 3, 7. Let's go ahead and draw. Draw an event card, flip it over. It'll be at the 6 or higher. DE, defender eliminated. Also, as well, pincer maneuver, successful. So we create a pocket. Yeah. Go ahead and move this major offensive marker over to Operation Barbarossa to show that we succeeded there. We have our pincer marker. Go ahead and remove that. We have the pocket there. They're eliminated, so it goes to destroyed Soviet units. And we'll move, let's see, up in here. And then let's go ahead and do... let's mobile advance 1st Panzer up into this. Actually, I don't know. Can he do that? Actually, can he do it into march rough terrain? He cannot. He cannot mobile exploit into there. So he will just sit tight in Lvov. So let's go ahead and flip him over. Flip him over. Oh, and we needed to use, excuse me, I forgot. We needed to use that armor marker. And we use up 1 of those for the pocket. So go ahead and use that up. All right, because you have a limited amount. You have to basically have those, command markers available to do those things. So, all right, I believe that combat is taken care of. We can't do any more because the rest of our units are actually disrupted to start the beginning of the turn. So we actually are done with the combat phase. We're going to go on to the next phase. All right, now you begin the reserve phase. So this is where we talked about the strategic reserve. If you had units there, you could go ahead and deploy them. Basically, you can deploy them to any friendly zone, an unlimited supply line. However, you do have to make sure that it's, you can't go, it has to be to supply, right? So you can't go behind, the enemy line or anything like that, right? Basically, again, it's a way to kind of beef up your line, for maybe a new line of defensive, or where you need to plug some holes. So, after the reserve phase, you do the use marker phase. So all of your, combat markers that you've used, you get to go ahead and remove them. So the phasing player, so in this case, the Germans, we get to remove our disruption and armor markers. So we have these units down here that were disrupted to start the game. Go ahead and remove those. The armor markers, we get to go ahead and take those off. Now, you're taking them off the board here. Key to remember is they are... and then you remove both players' done markers as well. Now, I don't think we really had any, because the Soviets didn't have any. Remember, though, you're not getting them back this turn. You don't get them back until the combat marker phase at the beginning of your turn. So the Germans, all these attack markers, support markers, they are getting set aside. You can have a cup for them. You may say you have a cup for use markers, throw them in there. That way you know that, hey, these are not available. Leave the pockets. But anything else, they're done. That's all of them, right? Yep, they're done. Leave the pockets. Now you are limited now. So for instance, with the Germans, I have 2 attack markers, which for the most part probably won't be a big deal. I have 3 support markers left. So now as it goes into the Soviet player turn, I only have 1 mobile tank, 3 support, and 2 attack markers left. So if you are using your markers up during your turn, you may not have them available when the enemy attacks you, may not be able to provide support. Or, in our case, we have 3, we would be able to provide some. All right, that's it for the use marker phase. Now we check our objective phase. So you'll check for reveal and score war goal offensives. We have our Operation Barbarossa. We did both of our major offensives, so we're good there. No penalties. We captured an area of the USSR, so we get 1. Our war status goes from 0 to 1. We also captured Minsk with the 3rd Panzer. So by capturing a major city, that goes up. So that goes up to 2. And the book will have all the different things, basically it'll tell you, hey, are you scoring for controlled or isolating objectives? Isolate means it can't trace land supply. First, if you get the first objective, you may get the second. You can then catch the second, et cetera, et cetera. Then finally, you get a new war goal. So very simple. Go ahead and draw one of your cards. And then what you do is you put a marker on it. And you look at the bottom to see if you control certain areas, Romanian oil, Soviet oil. That'll be your war goal. It would be, in a 2-player game, it would be secret. Obviously, it's just me. So just put it like that. All right, and that is the objective phase. So now you go over to the Soviets. They get a full player turn, just as the Germans do. You start with checking supply. Then you would check the German supply. Then they would get their combat markers, which, remember, the Soviets start with no combat markers, so they would then get 16 of them. They are going to draw their cards, events, and offensive card, then go into the strategic phase, where they are possibly putting units on the board, taking them off, reinforcements, etc. The Soviets, remember, they're going to get their reinforcements. They have some coming in this turn as well. They have 3 destroyed units. They can put them in the reserve for 1 resource, which they would likely do. So they'd probably be beefing up the Soviet strategic reserve. At that point, then, when it comes to their reserve phase, after movement and combat, they're going to want to put those out there, probably form a new line depending on where they are. Looking at the map, Soviets, definitely, do they have a chance to relieve one of these pockets? Maybe this one, maybe not. They may be losing some points for those, because what's going to happen then is the next German turn, they're going to be able to remove these pocket markers, and each one of these is going to give them a war status point. Now, in this scenario, Operation Barbarossa, if you hold 9 or more war aim sites and the initiative, you win. Or, in the rule book, it'll tell you exactly, or the playbook, I should say, it'll tell you for each scenario, because there's a bunch of different scenarios along with different campaign games and whatnot. When it comes to Operation Barbarossa, it'll tell you that you win after turn 6 is done. The German player wins if he controls the major city of Moscow, plus 1 other Soviet war aim site, or 6 Soviet major cities, so things like Minsk that we already captured, or if he has at least 10 war status point advantage over the Soviet player. So, for instance, right now we have 2 war status points. The Soviets have 0. So we're already 2 over the Soviets. So that is it. I was thinking about playing through the Soviet turn, but I'm not, because it's really all you would see for the most part. You're not going to see a whole lot of combat or doing too much. It would be a little bit of maneuvering. And then, like I said, you would get those destroyed Soviet units back. We would spend some resource points. We'd go ahead and put them in the strategic reserve, and then during the reserve phase, we would be putting them, forming a line, defensive line. And as it happens in this particular scenario, right, obviously it's Operation Barbarossa, the Germans are going to be pushing, you're going to kind of be pushed back, and you're going to keep resetting your line each turn as the Soviets, versus the Germans are going to be trying to have these kind of breakthroughs, forming pockets, getting extra points, capturing major cities, and moving your way towards Moscow. So hopefully that does help. And by the way, I don't even think I mentioned this at the beginning. This is the regular rules. So there is a basic way to play the game. That's like a 4-page rule book. This is not it. This is the like full game rules. I don't think it's the advanced game. I think there's technically an advanced game that adds even more. I'm not sure. I haven't checked that out. I just want to play kind of not the basic game, but I wanted to play the average game, right? I look at it like playing on normal difficulty, right? Like the normal game as designed. So hopefully this helps you. There's more to the game. Of course, there's a lot more. Hopefully, this at least gives you kind of an idea, though. The game comes with different player aid charts and sheets. You're going to be reading through those. You're going to want to have them handy when you're playing. You're going to need to have them handy when you're playing. You cannot just play this game based off like memory. It's not how this game works. At least I can anyway. I'll say that. Maybe if I played it for the next 3 months. But hope you enjoyed the video. I already have my recon, of course, for this, an unboxing. I will have a overview and review. Light on the overview since I did this tutorial video, heavy on the review part. Hopefully you look forward to that. I will definitely have some thoughts on this game, both positive and not so positive. But as usual, I will be honest and share all my opinions. But hope you enjoy this video. Hope it helps you to at least get started. This will not teach you the game 100%. You will need the rule book. You'll need the playbook. You'll be going back and forth to learn it. But hopefully with this video combined with the resources that comes with the game, you'll be able to learn the game and get playing yourself. So let me know below what you think if you played it. Let me know what you think of this video. And until next time, guys, later.